And we are now live.
Great. Thank you, Suzanne. This is the September 23rd, 2021 meeting of the Legislative Council. We will call the meeting to order and start with a roll call. Ms. Gresser, please.
Senator Pouliot.
Present.
Senator Timberlake.
Here.
Senator Daughtry.
Here.
Senator Vitelli.
Here.
Representative Stetkes.
Here.
Representative Dillingham.
Here.
Representative Talbot Ross.
Here.
Representative Dunphy.
Here.
Mr. President.
Present.
Mr. Speaker.
I'm here.
Mr. Speaker, you have a quorum.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is found on page 1 of the packet. Summary of the June 24th, 2021 meeting of the Legislative Council. Requires a decision to accept the meetings from our previous meeting. I'll seek a motion. Senator Daughtry.
So moved.
Moved by Senator Daughtry. Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Dunphy. All those in favor by show of hands. Okay, that's unanimous of those present. Thank you. Reports from Executive Director and Staff Office Directors, Fiscal Report. We'll turn it over to Mr. Nolan.
Good afternoon, everybody. The fiscal briefing is on page 9 of your document. I believe it is, last time I checked. So this is the fiscal briefing for the month of August, which is only the second month of fiscal year 22. General fund revenue for August was over budget by 42.4 million, or 11.8%, and is now over budget for fiscal year 22. Actually, that thing says fiscal year 21, so that's wrong. The box says fiscal year 21. We're in fiscal year 22 by 77.9 million, or 11.3% for the fiscal year to date. So positive for the month, and also positive for the first 2 months of the fiscal year. That 42.4 million, the biggest single component of it was sales and use tax revenue for August, which is based on July sales, was over budget by 23.3 million, or 13% for the month, and is now over, sales and use tax now over budget by 54.1 million, 15.6% for the fiscal year to date. I believe you've gotten the DAF's report as well, which includes the sales report, and showed a good summer, strong sales in lodging compared to a year ago, which is obviously a year ago was a low point, but still positive for lodging and restaurant. And the only area that was down slightly or not increased significantly was for cars, and we've all probably heard about the issues with the automotive industry and supply chain issues, etc. So individual income tax revenue was over budget by 11.1 million, or 7% for the month, and by 7 million, 2.3% for the fiscal year to date, with positive variances in individual income tax withholding and other payments that were partially offset by income tax refunds, which exceeded the budgeted amounts, which has a negative impact on revenue. We paid more out in refunds than we had expected for the month and for the fiscal year to date. Corporate income tax revenue was over budget by 2.7 million for the month, and by 16.7 million for the fiscal year to date. And that was made up of positive variances in corporate payments, final payments, and estimated payments. everything else is there are ups and downs that we expect through the first 2 months, and nothing necessarily does a trend make yet. So we'll keep monitoring that. And just a reminder, well, two things. One is that estimated payments for corporate, the third estimated payment for corporate and individual income tax is in September. And it was already due last week. And we will also, just a reminder that we'll be doing the economic forecast for November 1st and the revenue forecast again for December 1st. Is there any questions on the general fund portion?
Any questions for Mr. Nolan on general fund? Seeing none.
Next,
Mr. Nolan, Senator Pouliot has a question.
So my quick question is on the increased revenues from income tax. I mean, have we done any kind of analysis, or is this coming because people are we're getting some of the checks from the federal government that they were getting taxed on, or how does that shake out into this?
well, we had done, we actually talked, the CEFC and RFC had a retreat last week, and we had done, had some discussions about that and other issues. But I mean, we had specifically done the conformity issues with the payments that were made to businesses, and also we had done the UI piece in the supplemental budget last session. So we had done those two, and also we're monitoring any effects of any future federal changes in taxes, et cetera, that may cause timing issues with people moving activity, capital gains, et cetera, between fiscal years. And so continuing to monitor it all, and nothing seems out of what we had assumed in May, other than a slightly more positive position. And if that continues, we would probably be upping the forecast in that particular component in the December forecast.
So I'm just wondering where it seems to me to be a somewhat significant increase in revenues from the income tax side of things. Is that because wages are going up, or because there's more money flowing in that is kind of more temporary in nature? The amount, I mean, through 2 months, the amount is only 2.3% higher than the budgeted amount. I mean, most of the variance for this month was from the sales tax side. So, and it is in higher withholding, and the other components were not significantly above. So we are taking in more in withholding than we had assumed for the first 2 months. So it's still a little too early to say. I mean, we are continuing to monitor it. So, and we'll have another couple of months in. We'll have the revised economic forecast to say whether it's a significant trend from what we assume. Is the question more on what the budget assumption was, is how, or whether what's our actual experience versus that assumption? Yes. I mean, I don't think you could have foreseen the amount of, one-time payments or money that was going to come in as a result of or maybe you did, I don't know.
Well, when they last met we last did it in May, we knew a lot of that information and had planned for it. But as some of those, like the unemployment piece, goes away, I mean, certainly the positive position was certainly helped by all the additional federal money, and that explains a lot of it. And certainly we knew that the unemployment extension piece was going to go away beginning of this month. So that was assumed. And so it's really just waiting till we get a little more data on the actual collections for more than just 2 months to see whether we need to make any adjustments to that original assumption. But that was a big part of the positive adjustment in May that we did make to the forecast.
Any additional questions on general fund? Seeing none.
Next is the highway budget. The highway fund revenue was over budget, relatively small amount, 0.8 million, 2.4% for the month of August, and over budget by 1.6 million, 2.5% for the fiscal year to date. Fuel taxes were pretty much on budget, a small positive variance. So most of the positive variance through the 2 months for the highway fund was in registrations and fees, which are over budget by 0.5 million for the month and 0.7 million for the fiscal year to date. So highway fund is keeping up with the forecast, but only slightly greater than budget amounts through the first 2 months.
Questions on highway fund? Seeing none.
Next piece is the cash balances. The average balance in the cash pool for August was 3.774 billion, which was a slight decrease from July's average of 3.8 billion. The major reason for the decrease was a decrease in the general fund balance as a result of the timing of fiscal year 21 closing transactions, meaning that the closing transactions, the transfers out of the general fund, which we'll talk about in a minute, were not made till, which is a common occurrence. There's nothing new here. It's just when you're looking at July versus August. So the general fund held a lot of those balances until the closing transactions that transferred them out to the various places, a lot of which we'll talk about in the next segment. And that difference, they're then transferred out and not available in August. So that's why August is normally a decrease from July. Also, the CRF, Coronavirus Relief Fund, the first 1.25 million is spending down its cash. So there was a decrease in that item as well. The average highway fund balance in August was 59 million, and it was a decrease from 69.8 million in July. And that's a reflection of normal construction season variance, meaning this time of year, the money tends to be going out to pay for construction projects, etc. So that's also not an unusual adjustment to the highway fund balance going down in August versus July. Any questions?
Questions on cash balances? Seeing none.
And the last piece is the I also understand cash balances. We're also getting a lot of the ARP money in as well. The second, well, more than just the second, but the second large piece is also keeping balances high, getting the ARP money in. So we wanted to include we didn't do a report last month, so we wanted to just add for you the summary that we normally do of the fiscal year closing. I can go through it pretty quickly unless you have questions, if that's okay. I don't want to take up more of your time. So fiscal year 21 closing general fund balance totaled 520.3 million. Of that, 155.3 million was budgeted, meaning we had been assuming that in general fund status as we were working to close the budgets and close out the last session. So that was assumed, the 155.3 million, and then 365.1 million was unbudgeted. And the components of that 365.1 million was 349.6 million in general fund revenue surplus. So that from when we did the May forecast to the end of the fiscal year, we were under budgeting in the May forecast. So we had actual collections of 349.6 million, greater than the May forecast. And that also gets at Senator Pouliot's question of the additional funds that were collected in last fiscal year in the final 3 months that we had not fully anticipated in the May forecast. So that is in that same overall direction. In addition to the revenue surplus, we had 6.7 million in unbudgeted lapsed program balances. So these are programs that had appropriations that are not carrying accounts. They did not spend their funds, so their funds lapsed back to the general fund. And then 8.7 million in lapsed encumbrances and other accounting adjustments. And that is basically everything else, programs that have contracts, et cetera, that were not spent, and the encumbrances were lapsing, and a whole page after page of accounting adjustments, which this year turned out to the positive of the general fund for 8.7 million. So all that together totals 365.1 million. I'm reading from the text, but the next page has a summary of each of those component parts. So of that 365.1 million, we then do the statutory transfers out through what's referred to as the cascade. And that money is only from the unbudgeted surplus. The 155.3 in budgeted surplus stays in the general fund and is assumed to balance 22 and 23 in the normal process. So it was an assumed balance in 21 that is carried into 22 and 23. But the unbudgeted piece, the 365.1, first 86.5 million of it is distributed through fixed dollar transfers. And as you recall, last session, we added in the supplemental biennial budget, we added $80 million in fixed transfers. So the normal amount of fixed transfers, or the historical amount, is roughly in the 5 million range, but we in the second biennial budget, we added $80 million in those transfers. I'll go over those in a second. So I'll just switch to the chart, which shows the components of the 85 million, and 50 million was added for highway, bridge, and reserve. 20 million was added for land for Maine futures, community conservation projects, and 10 million was added for meals for students. So that's a total of 85 that's subtracted from the 365, leaving 279.5 million that was distributed by statute. 80% goes to the budget stabilization fund, and 20% also goes to highway, bridge, and capital in the change that was made in the second biennial budget as well. The distribution to the budget stabilization fund brings the total balance in the budget stabilization fund to 491.9 million, and which is nominally and as a percentage of revenue the highest I think that it has been in its current form. So, any questions on that? I realize it's not the most exciting stuff, but
Any questions on the general fund year-end summary? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Oh, do you have anything else?
I was just gonna, the highway fund also has a distribution at the end of the year, so it had a positive balance of 11.9 million. 9.6 of it was a positive revenue variance. And so it has similar components, lapse budget balances and other accounting adjustments. And 100 of that remains in the highway fund balance, and then the rest of it, 11.8, goes to transportation by statute. So again, also a positive situation. Obviously, the numbers are not anywhere approaching what the general fund numbers were. So,
In this this new transfer on highway and bridge capital, that's a new provision that was in the budget, I believe. Is that
the one in the general fund, so-called cascade, is both the component and the one-time fixed dollar transfers. That was originally put in anticipation of the money that was originally requested for ARP to be used for that purpose, in case that wasn't an allowable use. And then when the ARP bill went through, that language was modified to actually use it for that purpose. So that's just a one-time transfer of $50,000. The component that goes 80-20, the 20%, that also was a new item. It replaced the 20% that went to the property tax relief fund that formerly was the income tax relief fund. And that 20% would stay in statute until modified. So 20% would go to highway and bridge capital. Correct,
you.
that was new.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Nolan. Appreciate your
You're welcome.
comprehensive presentation. We will now receive a report on legislative studies from Ms. Fox. Hi.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Speaker Fecto, President Jackson, members of the Legislative Council. I have just a brief update for you on the status of interim studies for this meeting anyway. This year, a majority of the interim studies were established by legislation which takes effect on October 18th. So most of these studies aren't technically effective yet. However, appointments are coming in spite of the effective date. And for some of these studies, analysts and chairs have begun planning and setting dates for initial and subsequent meetings. So planning is underway and appointments are coming in, even though some of these don't take effect until next month. Some studies are in effect and underway. The tax expenditure review study, which was established by a joint order, holds its first meeting tomorrow. And the Commission to Increase Housing Opportunities and Study Zoning and Land Use Restrictions, which happened to be established by emergency legislation, has held 3 of its 6 planned meetings. That a 4th meeting is scheduled for next Thursday, and their report is due a little earlier than most on November 1st of this year. There have been a few policy committee meetings that have taken place. Most of those have been briefings. HHS, EDU, and or Education and Marine, they have all held meetings where they've had briefings, and the subcommittee on roads has met, and that's a subcommittee of the State and Local Government Committee. I expect that my next report, which will presumably come after the October 18th effective date, will contain much more for you by way of updates and information on interim studies. And I expect I'll present a chart for you to keep track, because there will be a little bit more that I'll have to say at that next meeting. And that's all I have for now, unless there are questions.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Fox. Any questions from Ledge Council? Seeing none. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next item on the agenda is reports from council committees, Personnel Committee, and I have that report here. The Personnel Committee actually met this afternoon just before our meeting today. Actually, I shall back up. Personnel Committee met on Thursday, August 5th, 2021, and today, Thursday, September 23rd, 2021, to consider the following matters. 1, collective bargaining. At its meeting on August 5th, 2021, the committee provided guidance to Ms. Gresser and Ms. Little related to collective bargaining. At its subsequent meeting on September 23rd, today, the committee received an update from Ms. Gresser related to this matter. And the council recommends that the full council move forward with the IANLP tentative agreement. This is one of the bargaining units. There are 2 bargaining units for the employees of the legislature, and this item will be discussed later in today's meeting. Secondly, performance evaluation and step increase for Nick Rendy, Director of Legislative Information Technology, was considered. At its meeting on August 5th, 2021, the committee reviewed the performance of Nick Rendy, Director of Legislative Information Technology. The Personnel Committee voted unanimously to approve a step increase for Mr. Rendy. No legislative council action is required. And this concludes the Personnel Committee's report. Any questions for me or anyone on Personnel Committee? Seeing none. Okay. First item on old business is council actions taken by ballot, no action required. This is begins on page 14, and it is merely a summary of actions that the council has taken by ballot since the last time we met. Any questions or comments on this item? Seeing none. New business. Item number 1 begins on page 16. Reinstatement of the Legislative Council COVID-19 prevention policy. And we can open it up for discussion. I guess I'll kick off the discussion. I think given the state of affairs since the last time the legislature has convened as a full body at the State House, I think we can all agree that the picture related to COVID has changed rather dramatically. I was looking at the average number of cases per day when we were at the State House back in June. It was hovering just below 100. We're now looking at well over 400 cases per day. Clearly, the Delta variant has changed the way in which this virus passes from one person to the next. I think, if we were meeting at any other point, I think we could obviously have a different conversation about whether or not we reinstate this policy. But I think given the likelihood of session next week and the current state of affairs, I think it's important that we reinstate a policy related to the common practices that we all are familiar with at this point for keeping safe. And that's where I'm coming from on this. So anyone else? Senator Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just weigh in on this in support of reinstating this policy as someone who tested positive for COVID a week ago and who is still recovering from what thankfully have been mild symptoms. I am convinced that given where we are in this virus, we have to use every tool at our disposal to try to keep it at bay and keep as many of us safe and free of this disease as we possibly can. And I would urge you all to accept the reinstatement of this policy. Thank you.
Representative Dillingham.
Thank you. So I understand the policy we're talking about back to masking and the staggering in offices to if they can't allow for the 6-foot difference. But is this also closing the building to the public again, even if they're coming through and going through our screening process?
I think the last version of the policy had already modified the provisions related to people from the outside, because I think we had this policy in place when we were at the State House and the public had re-entered the building. But Ms. Gresser, maybe you can provide some more information.
Yes, the policy altered a number of times over the course of the first regular and the first special, but the most recent iteration of the policy that existed prior to the rescission of it had said that access to legislative space was limited to people who passed the daily health screening. So the building was open. The only things that were required were that you asked yourself how you were feeling before you came into the building and that you wore the face covering. One thing that the last policy does contain that might require some alteration is in the remote attendance part, where the policy that was in place on May 20th, 21st said that committee staffing and committees shall be provided remotely. So if the thought is that, because as you recall during that time, all of the meetings were remote. People could come in and sit, but the meetings were conducted remotely. The meetings that we've been having this session have been a combination of hybrid, remote, or whatever is working best. So rather than having a requirement of that it be remote, you could have an allowance that it be remote, and then allow the chairs of the particular commissions, committees, studies, et cetera, to make those determinations.
Yeah, I think that makes sense for the policy to be mute on the point of whether or not the committee is staffed. I think, just speaking from the perspective of chairing a commission that's currently meeting, we have done, I think, we have not had we've done hybrid for, I think, one meeting or two meetings, and then exclusively remote for another meeting because of the changing circumstances with COVID. And so I think it really is a case-by-case basis of whether or not committees and commissions are choosing to meet with a hybrid format or a in-person format or just completely remote. So I'm fine with the policy not speaking to that. Senator Timberlake.
Yeah, I don't think you guys got any doubt how I feel, so. You and I don't agree, but that's all right. It's been going on for a year and a half or more, almost pushing close to 2 years now. And it's something that's going to be here forever, in my opinion. It's never going away. It's not going to be eradicated. It's the flu, it's the virus. It's called COVID for a reason. But I guess the question, I'm going to lose the vote, so I'm just going to get to back before in our personal spaces, we could do what we wanted. Is that still going to play into play? That when we're in our own rooms or whatever, it's our choice.
I think the policy speaks to partisan spaces remaining under the discretion of the partisan leaders.
Okay. You just addressed committee's meeting, but that means during session, people are going to be allowed in the building and be able to participate. the public can come in and participate during session. We're not gonna limit that. I guess that answers my questions. I don't agree. I think that people have been vaccinated and people that shouldn't should have been wearing their masks if they want to and have the decisions, but that's the way I feel. And we're not going to agree, so there's no reason to have a 2-hour discussion over it.
Representative Steckes.
Thank you. I guess following up on Senator Timberlake's, I think a couple of the big differences between today and when the policy was in place before is, number one, the vaccinations. Another one, I guess, has been deemed safe, as well as an ample amount of time for those who want to get the vaccination, have had plenty of time to do that. And as we know, there's a large percentage of people that have been mandated to get it. And then, of course, there's those who have actually had the virus and now are immune to it. In fact, I guess 6 to 13 times better than what the vaccination does. So I guess my question would be is, who is it that we're trying to protect by doing this at this stage of the game?
Well, I would think we're looking to protect people back in our own communities, our families, our kids who still remain unable to get vaccinated. I mean, we all hail from, in the House, 151 districts. We clearly know that even someone being vaccinated, you can still contract the virus and carry the virus and spread it to other people. And for those who are unvaccinated, unable to get vaccinated, immunocompromised, I think from at least from my perspective, I want to be looking out for those folks. And if putting a mask on for a couple hours on next Wednesday helps prevent the spread of this virus to my colleagues and then to their neighbors and their family members, I think it's totally 100% worth every second that the mask is on my face. So that's where I'm coming from. Senator Daughtry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to add in that, things have been changing. And as you just said, I wanted to point out that, there's still a large portion of our state that can't get vaccinated because they're children. There's also a variety of other reasons, but, just as a reminder, as we're discussing this, the public can still come in the building. We're still allowed, in our different spaces. But the CDC guidance has shifted since we were last in the building, and they are recommending that inside in areas of higher substantial transmission that we do mask. And, if we were all to, be taking public transportation, we'd be having to abide under the same, rules as well. So things have definitely shifted, and just wanted to remind folks that, we still are trying to protect everyone, not just ourselves, but people coming in and children who are still at risk.
Representative Dillingham.
Thank you. I appreciate the senator sharing that information, but I think we are all aware of that. And I will say, probably along the lines that I agree with Senator Timberlake. I don't think we need to have a lengthy discussion on this. I think we all know that this was going to be coming up today and where we're going to be going. And I just want to make it clear, not only to the members here, but those listening, when you hear a difference of opinion, certainly from myself and Senator Timberlake and Representative Steckes, it's not in the form that we don't care about people. We don't care about our districts. We don't care about each other. We fall that on a difference of whether it's mandated, whether we allow this for people to choose for themselves, for what they feel is safe for themselves, whether you're getting vaccinated or you feel safe that you need to wear a mask, versus government stepping in and telling that you have to. That's the only difference here. But like I said, I don't think we need to have a long debate about it. I think we can probably vote and we all know where we're going to go. But thank you very much. And I don't mean any disrespect to anyone.
Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Senator Pouliot.
So I too just agree with I agree with the sentiment shared by Representative Dillingham. Maybe this will be reported in the news now, but I had COVID in May. My wife had it, and we were in the Bahamas. She actually got stuck there for 4 days, and I had to go back because if I had tested positive while there, I would have had to quarantine in the Bahamas for 14 days. So luckily that didn't happen, but it was a pain in the butt. We're both, fine, doing fine. But, I want to say to Senator Vitelli and Senator Jackson, I hope you're feeling great. I think that I hope this is about next week and what we're going to do when we're in session and everything. And I'm just going to support the procedure here because it's the way it's going to go. But I do think that we have to have a more substantive conversation, maybe not today, but at a next meeting or something, about what kind of thresholds we're going to have to when we do this and when we don't, you know what I mean? Because I think that that's an important discussion to have. Like, are we going to not have this in place if there's less than 100 cases a day or more? Some kind of number other than we feel like putting this in place now because things seem bad. And because unfortunately, COVID's here to stay, you know what I mean? I've had it once, I hope I don't have it twice. It wasn't that bad for me, thank God, but I just, I feel like we have to have a little bit more substance to like how we're making these decisions, because otherwise what happens is the public gets really super frustrated. Like it just feels like, people in charge, in power decided to do this today, but then tomorrow they're going to decide to do something different. Whereas if we have like some empirical number to say that once we get to this like threshold, then these things are going to happen, at least people know, and it doesn't feel like whack-a-mole at the whim of who's ever in charge, So that's just my 2 cents on the issue. Appreciate you giving me the time. Thanks.
Yeah, I suspect we'll probably have a more robust conversation as we think about next January and headed into the longer regular session, because I think that there are definitely going to be some things we're going to have to consider that will be coming down the line that we need to contemplate as well. Obviously, as it relates to next week, I just think we're kind of, unfortunately, we have to have a special session to do redistricting. I wish we didn't have to, because we probably could take more time to really think more about what we want to do over the long term related to this policy or some variation thereof. But I think given the circumstances of timing, I think we kind of have to make a move, and I'd rather be safe than sorry. And I think this is a way of being at least one step closer to safe rather than sorry. President Jackson.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you, Senator Pouliot. I do appreciate that very much. And actually, I'm doing really well. I believe I had a test last night; it's negative. So, but that being said, I'm going to wait the rest of the week just to make sure. But I would say that we obviously and maybe everyone's right. Maybe this is going to be something that we're never going to get clear of, and I hope not. But it certainly has been a lot longer than I ever expected that we would have to deal with it. But I would say that under every matrix, every metric, every way you would measure this, today we are in a lot worse position than we've ever been as far as cases across Maine, as far as counties, every county across Maine. And so, we did lower it. We did agree as a council to take off the masks and get out of the policy. When we saw, people had vaccinated, there was a drop. But now, unfortunately, for reasons that I certainly probably don't understand all the signs behind, the numbers are going through the roof. And I think for at least for this one day to try and come back with maybe an even more thoughtful policy, I think it's important that that we do this. And, I think I told members that, we probably would be under the circumstances. I didn't expect that it would be to this extreme, but here we are. So I just think that it's better safe than sorry. And for one day to drag this back across all the different parts of the state, I think it's just it's a better way to go than taking a chance.
Senator Pouliot.
Yeah, just to be candid with folks, I've chosen to this point to not get the vaccine. I kind of feel like I already had the natural one. The science is out on that or whatever. But, the reality is I would prefer to wear a mask and not be forced to be vaccinated than the alternative. And so I'm hoping that we don't have to contemplate that as a legislative council. If you guys want an open seat in Senate District 15, go ahead and force vaccinations. There you go, Senator Jackson, because I'm just not going to do it. But I'm okay with wearing a mask if it means that I can keep my choice around whether or not to get vaccinated. I feel like that's a reasonable compromise. So I'll be supporting this measure despite Jeff's probably disappointment.
You can't see his face, but you can at least see his hands. President Jackson.
No, I don't have anything to say after that. Thank you.
The only other thing I would mention is the policy, as was outlined before, included face shields as an acceptable means of or acceptable alternative to a face covering itself. I would like to open a discussion about that as well. I think there's new CDC guidance on face shields being not at all preventative in terms of spread. It would seem to me that members that want to wear a face shield or don't want to wear a mask at all could park themselves in the partisan office, put the mask on to come out and vote and then go back. I feel like the onus should not be on members who want to comply with the policy to have to leave the chamber and then come back. I think based on my experience in the House, at least 90% of members wore an actual face covering. So it seems like to accommodate a smaller group of people who refuse to wear a real face mask when they're required basically in every, as Senator Daughtry mentioned, to travel on plane, bus, train, you have to wear a real face covering. I saw the former governor at his rally yesterday wearing a real face covering. So I think it makes sense for the shield to not be an acceptable alternative. But Representative Dillingham.
Thank you. The issue is that not all members are just refusing not to wear a regular mask. I know I specifically have a member that cannot wear a regular mask. She's vaccinated, but she has to wear a face shield because of medical issues. So I don't know what we do there to try to tell her, even though you're vaccinated, we're not going to allow you to come into the chamber as a duly elected official to represent your district because you have a documented health issue and you can't wear a mask. So much so that, yes, you're required to wear a mask on a plane, and to get out where she needed to go, she drove because she knew she wasn't going to be able to wear a mask. So in some cases, there is just really a true issue and a health issue for some folks. So I don't know how we do that. And just back to the previous discussion with Senator Pouliot, I will wear a mask on session day. I don't have a problem doing that. I'm also vaccinated, but it comes down to, it's my choice. And I wish we could get to the point where we allow everyone to make an adult decision on what they think is best for their health and those around them. But I'll move on.
Senator Timberlake.
And I agree with Senator Dillingham, you know, I'll do that, but my other question is are you trying to create hate and discontent because you know there's 2 or 3 members that wear the face shield, and up until today is the first I heard that they weren't approved. I mean, if we're gonna have compromise here, there needs to be some compromise, and I just can't see, Mr. Speaker, why you would not accept the face shield if you don't like the one matter of fact, as I read the packet, as I was looking at it a little while ago, there was 3 face shields listed that were approved at least that's the way I read it. Maybe I read it wrong. But I think you're asking for trouble, and I don't think that's really what you want. But I think when you start saying now, okay, this is not approved, only this is approved, we're going a step too far. It gets back to people's rights, people's choices. And I wholeheartedly disagree with the face shield issue.
Any other discussion? I think I would request a corner caucus, if that's okay.
You want corner caucus with me or what?
No, not with you.
I might be able to get through.
That's not a motion though, all right? I mean, you just have to.
Yeah. So I think, Ms. Gresser, if we can pause our proceedings, we'll send out a link to members of my caucus. I think members of the Democratic caucus can just leave this meeting and we can return after.
Hey, Suzanne. Suzanne,
I am
Hey.
turning on my, hello, yes.
sorry. Just an attendance check. No, just kidding. So I actually have to hop off my computer and then get in my truck and join on my phone. So you see my Zoom link probably pop up in like 3 or 4 minutes.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
I think we're just, no, I think we have everyone back from both. I think all members are back. Great. I'll just give folks a few minutes to return. Okay, so at this point, I think how we'll proceed is keeping the policy intact as it was when we were in session at the State House back in early June. I would just note that I think as we head towards January and being back in session in a more full-time manner, I think looking at this policy and reassessing it, as well as the state of affairs related to COVID, will definitely have to be something that we do. I think it'd be a little bit difficult at this point to think about how we account for medical reasons for why someone has to wear a face shield. I think the assumption will be that those who are wearing face shields are doing so because they have something that affects them in a way that doesn't permit them to wear the standard face covering. But I think we will probably be reevaluating the COVID-19 prevention policy headed into the full time nature of the legislature beginning in January, given the state of COVID at this point. So with that, unless there's any further discussion, I would entertain a motion to adopt the policy with the revision related to committee work. And I think the rest of it stays the same. Ms. Gresser, do you have any other items in the policy that would need changing or modifications?
No, the only one is clarifying that the remote meetings are not required, that it's optional.
Okay, great. Any motions, President Jackson?
I'll make that motion, Speaker, with Director Gresser's changes.
Thank you. President Jackson makes a motion to adopt the policy. Inevitable. Representative Dunphy seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Mr. Gresser.
The no vote.
Sorry, Senator, I missed what you said.
I think that dog barking was a no
Oh,
vote.
I see. Yeah. I actually, she really wanted me to go toss the ball while we were on break, so she's gonna have to wait a little longer. Ms. Gresser, do you mind calling the roll?
Certainly. Senator Pouliot,
Yes.
Senator Timberlake,
No.
Senator Daughtry,
Yes.
Senator Vitelli,
Yes.
Representative Stetkis,
No.
Representative Dillingham,
No.
Representative Talbot Ross,
Yes.
Representative Dunphy,
Yes.
President Jackson,
Yes.
and Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, the vote is 7 yeses, 3 nos, so the motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is a discussion of, well, I actually lost the meeting, so let me find them. I think lobster, I'll turn it over to President Jackson to walk us through this item.
Thank you, Speaker and members of the council. So obviously there's an awful lot to this, but it's my opinion that the rules that NOAA has come out with recently on lobster management area 1 are unfair, somewhat biased, if not completely biased. And in the end, I don't believe we'll do anything to actually help the right whales. But it's certainly going to do a lot to hurt the lobster industry and thereby the state of Maine. I have had members of NOAA, the New England branch of NOAA here in Augusta, and had them tell me and others that were in the meeting that they don't fly over the Gulf of Maine anymore because they don't feel that the right whales are actually in the Gulf anymore. You know, from the science behind it, the whales chase the copepods because quite possibly because of the warming water. Copepods are not in the Gulf like they used to be. Thereby, the whales aren't in the Gulf. And a lot of people would argue, and I believe the environmental community that brought the suit to begin with, a lot of people would argue that Lobster Management Area 3 would have been a better area to close because there quite possibly might have been whales in that area. But I don't think that fit the narrative of some people. And so anyways, long and short of it is that there will be a federal lawsuit filed in Bangor to try and reverse these rules, try and get a stay on the rules till more data comes forward. And this is different than the federal lawsuit down in DC challenging the whole biological opinion. And so I feel pretty strongly that, and it's only a short window that they have to actually challenge these rules, which is 30 days. And so I feel pretty strongly that the state of Maine should be very much involved in pushing back on this. That's why I was very supportive of signing on to Representative Falkingham's letter asking the Biden administration to overturn the rules. That being said, I'm not convinced that that's going to happen. I feel very helpless in that regard. And so what I would be asking the council today, in the form of a motion, is that we as the Legislative Council sign on to the lawsuit in Bangor as plaintiffs, because I believe we probably all know how devastating this is going to be to the lobster industry. And I hope we all understand that this is not going to be the end. If this is allowed to stand, they'll be back to close more area. And so that's the ask for today. I would further propose that the council consider financial contribution to the lawsuit, but I would probably prefer that if we are in support of signing on as a plaintiff as legislative counsel, I would probably ask that we wait and have, members of the people filing the lawsuit come in and explain, the whole suit, and then the council could consider if they want to do anything financially to help in that regard. And it wouldn't be obviously the first time that the legislature joined in a suit, although be it in different chambers. At least on the Senate end, we've actually joined in suits before. I think this probably would be the first time that the council actually voted to do that. I can appreciate that. It wouldn't be the first time that the council voted to appropriate any money out of the council budget on an issue. I had Donna and Suzanne go through the history, and they came back with 2013 council voting to appropriate money to the city of Lewiston after devastating fire. I actually was on the council at that time, forgot that. That's a discussion that, I'm more than happy to have. I mean, I would probably advocate, like I said, to have people come in and present to the council. But I do think that in the short timeline that they have, I would, when it's appropriate, make a motion that the council join as a plaintiff in this lawsuit to show that we as a state, or at least as a legislative body, are very much opposed to rules being made that don't have any science behind them and are going to dramatically affect the industry, thereby also the state of Maine.
Thank you, President Jackson. Any questions, comments related to the points raised here? Senator Vitelli.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just say, as a former member of the Marine Resources Committee and as someone who represents lobster industries and actually zones E in my district, I think it would be meaningful to the industry if this body came out in support of their efforts to try to push back on the rules, which, as I understand them, are in a way much more heavily than is being presented on the lobster industry as a whole, but particularly those in the areas that I represent. So I don't have the legal background to understand whether we as a body could have standing in a lawsuit. I want probably more information on what kind of funding this body could offer, but I think at the very least, a statement of support for the efforts to fight against these rules would be appreciated by the industry, and I would support a motion to that effect.
Representative Steckes.
Thank you. If it's appropriate at this time, I would like to make that motion in support of our lobster fishermen, as President Jackson suggested.
So just to clarify the motion, I think in terms of how we join the suit, I want to be clear about what it is we're discussing. I don't know what the actual semantics are, but I know in talking briefly to the Attorney General's office before we met, it would seem like the best avenue would be to file an amicus brief that we could sign on or initiate as Ledge Council. And I would think we could probably open it up to all members of the legislature to sign on to. It's possible that the AG's office might be able to draft that amicus brief for us. But it may also be possible. I don't know. Ms. Gresser might be able to weigh in on whether, and I think Ed is still on as well, whether or not the revisor's office would have the capacity or ability to do that. But I think it seems like the AG's office might be able to do it for us. So I just want to be clear about how we are joining the suit. It would seem to me that an amicus brief is the most sensible because we're not the party. The legislature is not the party that's being impacted by these rules, right? But we certainly have an interest in the outcome, given the impact it will have on the lobster fishing industry. So, Ms. Gresser, I don't know if you have any, or Mr. Charbonneau.
Right. So an amicus brief would be sort of a friend of the court brief, and that I can understand why the Attorney General suggested that as perhaps the best option. Because in that instance, members of the legislature could sign on, and what you would be doing is indicating the signatories to the amicus brief would be the people who were supporting it. The Legislative Council as a body, I think it would be trickier for it as a body to sign on because of the duties that are set out in the statute. So the duties of the Legislative Council are set out in Title III. So if the legislature voted to tell the Legislative Council to enter as a party, that would be one thing. But I think absent direction from the legislature, I don't know that the Legislative Council, because of its duties being managing and taking care of this and, you know, appropriating funds for this and furniture and all that, I don't know that it would be within what that list is unless you were performing such other duties and responsibilities that were assigned to the council by the two houses. So that would be one way if you were going down the path of actually being a party. The amicus brief would not be that, and therefore would not require that kind of direction, because then it would be the individual legislators, including the council members and anyone else who wanted to sign on to it. The issue of who would provide the amicus brief or provide the drafting, it couldn't be a member of nonpartisan staff, because we couldn't put our names on something that would obviously be expressing an opinion. So I know that in the past, when certainly the council has been party to litigation that it hasn't initiated in the past, and I know that there are outside counsel who have, and partisan staff persons who may be attorneys who've worked on things like that. Ed, am I forgetting anything, Ed? No.
So just as a point of clarification, you're saying that in order for Ledge Council to initiate anything related to this issue, we would need explicit direction from the legislature in the form of a joint resolution or
a bill. So there are lots of different ways that the legislature could express its intent regarding this. It could pass a joint resolution urging. It could, pass a resolution expressing the sense of the legislature. That's something. It could pass. It could require. It could pull the Marine Resources Committee and tell it to meet and figure out something to do. It could pass a bill that directs the Legislative Council to, take action in some way or another, and then it would fit within other duties and responsibilities, because it would be performing other duties and responsibilities that were assigned to the council by the legislature. None of that would be necessary for the filing of an amicus brief.
Senator Daughtry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I just want to echo that I definitely think time is of the essence and we should do something. And I guess from listening to what you're saying, Ms. Gresser, this might not necessarily be the best fit. So I'm wondering if we can't join the lawsuit as this entity. Is there any rules? I'm just trying to think of like what we can do to the strongest showing. And I know the amicus brief could be one way for us to get a bunch of legislators separate and not with the delay of going, X, Y, and Z. But I'm wondering if there's any way, if we can't sign on as ledge counsel, is it possible to take maybe a straw poll vote to see if we could also send a letter saying that the leader, like see if all of us as the leadership, even if we can't say ledge counsel, if there's a way to say all leadership is behind this or something. I'm just trying to think creatively of the way we can get this done. It's a hard time for the lobster industry, and this is a crucial matter for my district as well.
Well, I think definitely informal of a ledge council vote, we could all sign on to a letter initiated by someone here, but I don't know if a letter is as strong as an actual formal filing with the court, and so I think I don't know what I feel like we should find a way to be able to. In my opinion, I think the goal would be to find a way where the legislature, whether it's this council, the body at large, the two chambers separately, but to file with the court, I think would be the most powerful. President Jackson.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, I'm not opposed to having any legislator sign on. I mean, it would be awesome, but I guess I'm having a hard time to understand what the council's role is, and typically the 6-month period when the legislature's not in. I mean, by virtue of us being elected leaders, we speak for the legislature, especially during that time whenever legislature is not in session. And like, I can't imagine the rules are that, we have to call the legislature back in time every time there's an important decision for the council. So I guess also I'm not sure if I understood you right. Like you're saying that we can, as legislative council, sign on an amicus brief, but that's probably as far as we can go, or?
I am saying that if you were signing on to an amicus brief, that you would be probably signing on all as individual legislators. I would be happy to talk with the Attorney General and figure out. In the past, there have been times, decades ago, where people have said, does this fit within what the Legislative Council's authority is? So it's not out of the realm of possibility for someone to think, what is the words of the statute that allow the Legislative Council to do stuff? So I would be happy to talk to the Attorney General and figure out the options and then send the options to all of you, if that works.
Yeah, I think if I understand things the way I think I might understand them, which is very elementary, but I don't even think Ledge Council necessarily needs to be the initiator of the brief. I think any member could initiate it and then have as many members sign on to it as they'd like. Senator Pouliot, I know you had your hand raised. Do you want to say something before you sign off? I think we're gonna miss him. I'll just read what he said in the chat, because the chat is not public and it is a communication. He says, "I'm sorry, but I have to hop off. I support what we can do within our capacity to help the lobster industry." So I just wonder if it's even necessary for Ledge Council to be the initiator of the brief. If President Jackson initiated the amicus brief, I think any member of the legislature could sign on and sign on to the brief, and that which would even allow us to avoid having to bounce a JR between the bodies.
Yeah, but that doesn't have, like, the full weight of the Maine legislature and has individual legislators. And I'm still struck with, I don't understand how we were able to appropriate money to the citizens of Lewiston that we did not get a vote from which I was very supportive of, which we did not get a vote of the legislature at the time. Like I said, I am more than happy to bring this in front of the legislature because I think they'll support it. But a brief, signing on to the plaintiff is a stronger motion. An amicus brief is fine, but, just individual legislators signing on to it as individual legislators, I don't think brings the same weight as the Maine legislature.
When we took a look to see if there were any instances in which the Legislative Council as a body had initiated a lawsuit or intervened in a lawsuit, we were unable to find any instances. And I think it's because it's not, I think Senator Timberlake has his hand up in real life.
I think Ms. Gresser, you can complete your thought before I recognize Senator Timberlake.
So I think the reason why we were unable to find an instance in which the Legislative Council as a body initiated a suit was because it's not normally within the duties of the Legislative Council to do such things. And the authority of the Legislative Council is clearly laid out in Section 162. And so I'm not saying that anything would be impossible. I'm just saying that it's not immediately apparent under what of the authorities this would fall.
Senator Timberlake.
So Senator Jackson and I agree.
Again.
I don't know. Ms. Gresser doesn't know where it gives us authority, but she can't tell me where it doesn't give me the authority. And until somebody tells me I can't do something, I've always been known to push the limit to doing something. So I think we do it. And if someone tells us we can't or sues us, then we'll have to deal with that. But I think that it's we're all elected leaders to represent when we're not in session, and that's what we're doing. And I agree with Senator Jackson on this, and I'm probably going to regret it, but I think this is important enough to the lobster industry in the state of Maine that we need to do something here. And if it takes the joint order, I thought that would be simple, but nothing's ever simple in Augusta, so I get that. But if this is what it takes, then I have no problem with testing the waters, as they say.
Senator Daughtry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the might start a dangerous precedent. And I think I'm going to echo a little bit of what Senator Timberlake just said, and wondering if it's possible for us to just vote to say to look into, can we take action to look into this? And then also at the same time, do the amicus brief as well. So we're doing both. My thought is, as much as we can do to do as many strong statements to support the industry, I think would be a good way to move forward.
I think we could probably vote to initiate an amicus brief. And if for some reason someone calls us out that it's wrong, then we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Well, yeah, and the other thing, not to speak out of turn, obviously it can be tentative to what Ms. Gresser finds out and consulting with the Attorney General. I did speak to the Attorney General. He also was going to look into it. My question to them was, well, do you not also have the responsibility to represent the legislature, not just the state agencies? And said clearly he did. But in the meantime, we clearly can also do a joint order for Wednesday. That would back up any vote that the council takes today.
Okay. So I guess I would entertain a motion for legislative council as a whole to be the initiator of a amicus brief.
So moved.
So moved by Representative Dillingham, seconded by several people, I think Representative Dunphy. Any further discussion? And I think we could probably pursue having the Attorney General's office draft this. And if they can't do so, maybe we can touch base with the attorney who are representing the association who's filing the suit, but hopefully the AG's office can do this. I would imagine they can.
Yeah, well,
President Jackson.
yeah, thank you, Speaker. I mean, that's one thing that, I mean, we might need to have an earlier council, but, the lawyers filing the suit said that they would, gladly come on and explain, answer questions and stuff like that. So certainly line that up for the next council meeting.
Awesome. So we have a motion, a second, and I think there's no more discussion. Ms. Gressler, please call the roll.
Senator Pouliot. Senator Timberlake,
Yes.
Senator Daughtry,
Yes.
Senator Vitelli,
Yes.
Representative Stetkes,
Yes.
Representative Dillingham,
Yes.
Representative Talbot Ross,
Yes.
Representative Dunphy,
Yes.
President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, you have 9 yeses, unanimous of those present.
Thank you. And then the final item on our agenda, item number 3 under new business, is executive session. I would entertain a motion to enter into executive session. So moved by Senator Daughtry.
Second.
Seconded by Representative Dunphy. We will now enter into executive session.
Suzanne, did you want to do the breakout room to do that, or would you like to
Mr.
discuss
Speaker, would
that?
you, yeah,
Yeah, I
Nick,
think we do need to come back for announcements and remarks.
yeah, so, and any, okay, so Nick, if you could send the council members and Jackie and me to the breakout room, can you do that?
Let me see what happens as I click. Why aren't you here? I've got everybody but you, Chris, Derek, and I. So let's do it.
And while you're figuring that out, Mr. Speaker, I think you're supposed to say that we're going into an executive session for purposes of discussing collective bargaining negotiations.
Ditto.
Exactly.
Open the room. So you should all receive an invite to join a room. Suzanne, you may be able to just click on breakout rooms and go yourself. I did
Okay.
not have the ability, because perhaps your host, to send you there.
Okay.
Come on.
Well, if Jackie's in the breakout room, I can go down.
Do you see breakout? Do you see a room, or do you see the rooms?
I see that everyone is there, so I am going to go down to
Okay.
Jackie's office.
Okay. I'll let them know.
Okay.
Huh, that's kind of odd. I don't know why that didn't work. Maybe because she's host, she can't leave. Let's learn something new every day, I guess.
And Nick, just reminding you, you're live.
Yep, I will now fix that.
Are we done now, boss?
I just have to read something, but you can totally leave if you'd like. I have to say some words from statute. I'm sure it's not anything you probably want to hear.
It's probably riveting if I can only imagine.
Not as fun as
I'm gonna get to work. So
okay.
You guys have a great day.
Okay. We'll miss you.
I doubt it.
We agree so much. I'll miss you.
I have to
Oh,
get
1 out
out.
of 3 ain't bad.
Everyone have a great day.
Thank you.
I'm just waiting for Ms. Gresser to send me what I need to say. I think.
Yes, she'll be here momentarily.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if you can hear, but my dog is sitting in front of my desk, just faintly whining about not having the chance to play with the tennis ball right now. So it's been great.
Mr. Speaker, I just sent you the motion. I hope.
Yes, okay. So we have concluded executive session. The proposed motion before us is that pursuant to its authority under 26 MRSA subsection 979-A subsection 5, the Legislative Council of the 130th Legislature ratified the collective bargaining agreement for the period of October 1st, 2021 through September 30th, 2023 that was negotiated and tentatively agreed to by the authorized representatives of the Legislative Council and the Independent Association of Nonpartisan Legislative Professionals on September 21st, 2021. Further, that the Legislative Council authorized the Executive Director to take all necessary steps to carry out the terms of this agreement. Further, that upon recommendation of the Personnel Committee, the Legislative Council exercises its right to adopt the revisions to its personnel policies pending agreement from the respective authorities to apply personnel policies and benefit provisions that are comparable to those contained in the aforementioned ratified collective bargaining agreement, and direct its Executive Director to incorporate as appropriate and administer those provisions, and further that compensation provisions in the form of cost of living adjustments, lump sum payments, and longevity payments and salary steps comparable to that provided in the aforementioned ratified collective bargaining agreement be provided to the legislative employees who are not represented by a collective bargaining agent, the effective dates of such compensation provisions to coincide with those contained in the aforementioned ratified collective bargaining agreement. Poetic.
Nice backing track too.
That's my proposed motion. Is there? Yes, and Pancake was whining the whole time. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Representative Talbot Ross. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Gresser, please call the roll.
Senator Pouliot. Senator Pouliot is absent. Senator Timberlake. Senator Timberlake is absent. Senator Daughtry.
Yes.
Senator Vitelli.
Yes.
Representative Stetkis.
Yes.
Representative Dillingham. Representative Dillingham is absent. Representative Talbot Ross.
Yes.
Representative Dunphy.
Muted.
Yes.
Mr. President.
I'm sorry, yes.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, you have 7 votes in favor and 3 absent, so the motion carries.
Thank you very much. That concludes our new business for the day. Final item on the agenda, announcements and remarks. Any announcements, any remarks?
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't say how much I appreciate the council on that issue with the lobster industry, and I certainly like to make sure people know that I have that most respect for Suzanne Gresher and her unbelievable knowledge of the legislative process. I guess it's just something that I feel very strongly about and trying to figure out a way to make it work. But certainly no. Well, I just think the world of her. So, I didn't mean to be insulting or anything like that. So with that, again, I appreciate the vote and thank you for your time.
Thank you, President Jackson. Any other comments, questions, concerns, remarks, announcements? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by President Jackson, seconded by Senator Daughtry. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous of those present. I'm assuming Representative Stekis agreed. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks.